Yes, good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra, the Monday edition with me, Fred Indimuli. Now the countdown continues. It is now 35 days to the elections and debate over who has the numbers is getting louder by the day. Now forget about the politicians. We do know who has the numbers as we speak, the IEBC. Yes, the electoral agency is the custodian of this most coveted list of 19,611,423 Kenyans who will potentially decide who our political leaders will be. Now, quite a number of queries have been raised with regard to the authenticity of this voters' roll. Are there dead people still registered as voters? What about claims that some of the numbers could have been inflated? Have you heard this one? That the allegations about random ID numbers generating results from the IEBC's SMS verification platform? Is that even possible? We'll be seeking answers to these questions on this show. Meanwhile, from the campaign trail, we continue to be treated to a juicy buffet of accusations and counter-accusations between politicians. For example, NASA now claims that police officers are being recruited as poll officials. Jubilee, on the other hand, accuses NASA of using proceeds of corruption to fund campaigns. Jubilee also says it is convinced that NASA does not want elections held on August 8th. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch accuses KRA, the National Police Service, NCIC, the Communications Authority, the IEBC, and the NGO Council of siding with Jubilee. Should we take any of them seriously? We'll also take a look at the use of political messages on social media and look at the guidelines given by the Communications Authority and the NCIC. First, let me introduce my guests this morning in studio. We're privileged to have Akombe Kwamboka, a Commissioner IEBC, and also Mark Bichachi, our analyst this morning. We'll be discussing that very big discussion about IEBC and the numbers on the voters' roll. We do have a press release that we just received from ODM, signed by the Secretary General, and probably we could start with that. On allegations of voter tampering, this has been signed by Agnes P. Zani, that's the Secretary General, ODM, and it's dated today, 3rd of July 2017. And it raises quite a number of issues here which we'll be looking at, and because we have a commissioner of the IEBC, I'm sure we'll get answers to this. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you've had this issues about the voter numbers and the questions that have come up. Quickly, Kwamboka, the numbers that you have, 19,611,423. Probably the expectation was that after the voter audit, the audit of the register, the numbers were going to be much lower than that. There was talk about probably shedding off about 2 million names from the list. How come the change wasn't that big?
Thank you so much. And you know, Kenyans will remember that when KPMG was presenting its audit report, that presentation was made public. We had all stakeholders invited to that meeting, and KPMG explained the methodology that they had used. They explained how they got to the number 92,000 of deceased voters. You see, according to the KPMG, any records of deceased voters that they needed to put forward to the IEBC for consideration needed to be records that have been provided to them by legally mandated institutions that register deaths in this country. And there is a legally mandated institution that does that, but the numbers that it gave to them were about 435,000, and out of the 435,000 Kenyans that it gave to them, only a few of them had their national IDs. Also, some of them included young people, you know, infants, and people who are not 18 or who are below 18. So in the end, the number that KPMG was provided, that they were able to run against, that we were able to run out against our register, was about 92,000 Kenyans. Okay. And we looked carefully at those numbers, and you realize that once we looked carefully at those numbers, they even went, they went even lower than that, because they ended up being about 88,000, because some of those were cases of people, about 3,000 of those were cases of people who had gone to report that somebody was deceased, but instead they were indicated as the ones who are deceased. So we had to make sure to be very careful when looking through the register to ensure that you do not disenfranchise any Kenyan. Yes. You don't take somebody out of the register who is already alive. So the numbers of deceased, yes, could be higher if you're talking about statistics. But when you're talking about data of ID numbers of people and names of people, we're not very good as a country in capturing that information.
So you're saying the possibility that yes, there could be quite a number of people who are already deceased, but are on that voters roll, that is real, that there exists?
We have been saying that actually. If you look at all our communication as the IEBC, we have been saying that based on the audit provided to us, based on what KPMG has provided to us, there was even an estimate of about 1 million people that could still be on the register that are deceased. Okay. But you know, those are statistics. You will need real names of people, real ID numbers of people for us to be able to remove those names from the register. Yes. And it cannot be that Rosalind decides today that my grandmother who passed away a few years ago might be on the register, and that I can remove my grandmother out of the register. I do not have the authority to do that. Okay. There is a legally mandated institution that can provide us the names and certify that those names are deceased, that those people are no longer with us, and that is when we can be able to remove those names from the register.
Are you saying
just
that
the fact that somebody knows that somebody is deceased is not a guarantee for us to be able to start removing those names out of the register.
Yet the records of births and deaths in Kenya is under a particular office. Are you saying that even when you're compiling the list of the voters roll, you do not use other government data to actually check who's there, who could have been declared deceased?
Yes, we do, and that is what KPMG did. That's what the KPMG audit did. KPMG and us wrote formally to those institutions asking for that information, and the information they provided to KPMG is what I've just explained, that in the end the total was about 92,000, and in the end what we could verify from our register as people who were deceased were about 88,000. You know, it is important as Kenyans that we also start laying responsibility where it lies. You know, the IEBC is mandated to register voters. It is our role to register voters, and if we don't do that right, then Kenyans need to hold us accountable for that. It is not our role to register deceased persons, and Kenyans should ask those questions to those institutions that have the responsibility. The taxpayers give money to register and take account of deceased voters. So we will carry our burden, we will carry our responsibility as it relates to cleaning the register, to having a verifiable register, but other institutions that have different roles also need to be called into question when it comes to these issues.
So you're saying that yes, someone is failing somewhere, it's just not the IEBC with regard to that matter.
And that is why as the IEBC we are trying to ensure that we do not have deceased voters come out to vote. That is why with the KIMS technology, what you will do as a voter when you arrive is to ensure that is first to put your fingerprints, and we've showed this. We had a demo on how the KIMS technology is going to work, and as long as you don't have your biometrics in the system, you're not going to vote. So unless I'm being told today that Kenyans have become so callous that they have been able to cut the fingers of deceased people, and that they'll be coming with those fingers on polling day, then we really need to ask ourselves serious questions. Because what we are saying is that you will need to have your biometrics with you. You need to appear in person, put your fingerprints on the KIMS technology. You are identified before you're given a ballot to vote.
Okay. And we'll come back to that issue, because that's one of the issues that ODM has raised in this press release released today. And if I may just read this part, the party has dismissed assurances by IEBC officials that it does not matter what comes out of their processes of voter verification, where Kenyans have confirmed the existence of their dead family members. Some who passed away 15 to 20 years ago are still having their names in the voter register. Is that even possible, that someone could have died 20 years ago, yet they're still considered as being an eligible voter? Kwamboka, that's to you. Just before we move to the other analysts, is it possible?
Look, that shouldn't be the case. I totally agree with you that shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be the case that you have deceased voters on the roll. I mean, obviously, it is not possible about the people who passed away 20 years ago, because, as you recall, the register that we are using now is the register that started from 2013, that was used on the basis of the 2013 elections. So what you have is people who started registering from 2012 up to now. So yes, if you're looking at deceased voters maybe between 2012 and now, you may find some names there. But 20 years ago, that's obviously not possible, just because we have a new register that started in 2012, 2013.
Okay.
You know, and that is why, you know, you know, I have read with concern some of the statements that have been made by Senator Zani, and we're going out of our way to explain every process, because we think Kenyans, it's important for every Kenyan to understand the various processes that are being put in place to ensure that we don't have a fraudulent election. Okay. And I think we should be given the opportunity as the IEBC to continue explaining to the Kenyan people and for the politicians to allow the IEBC to be able to communicate with the Kenyan people on these processes, because in the end, the number one stakeholder is the Kenyan voter. Okay.
Now, even as you continued giving us the perspective from IEBC, we are also joined on set by Vincent Kimosop, who is also our analyst. Very good morning to you, Vincent. Karibu sana.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. But let's start with Mark Bichachi. Do you understand where ODM is coming from when they make such claims that yes, they've dismissed that kind of assurance that you're getting from Kwamboka, that whatever IEBC is saying with regard to the voters register and the existence or the possible existence of deceased individuals on the roll?
You know, one of the things that I keep saying is that the IEBC has a double mandate. It has a technical mandate of making sure the elections are credible and fair, but it has a public relations mandate for those same elections to be seen as to be being credible and fair. And one of the things that the good commission here has just shared and has scared me a little bit is she said that there could be up to 1 million people who are dead, but they have no way of verifying this. That's a very dangerous statement, because one of the ways that ballots are stolen is you can register using BVR, but you're issued with 6 ballot papers, which is called ballot stuffing. Now, if you tell me there are 1 million people possibly within which I can play a space of ballot stuffing, then you're creating a precedence where you could find politicians making use of that window and doing ballot stuffing. And why is that dangerous? It's dangerous because this is an election of 50+1. That means one vote can change the destiny of our nation. The IEBC has a mandate to be accountable for every single vote that is given out in this particular election. It has a mandate to make sure that every loophole is closed. And this is not a CORD issue, it's not a NASA issue, it's not a Jubilee issue, it's a Kenyan issue. And IEBC has to rise above the excuses that they're giving us and saying that a certain government agency has failed. That is fine, they have failed, but the ball is in your court. You understand? You've got to play the hand that you're dealt. And if you're not going to play the hand that you're dealt, then you have no business saying that you are the IEBC. You've got to rise to the challenge and rise above that and conquer for the sake of this nation.
And Mark, that is exactly what we have done. We have realized that we knew from the KPMG, again, the numbers that I've talked about, the 1 million, is not a number that Rosalyn Akombe is coming up with. It is a number that was provided to us by KPMG. If you read the report that has been made available to the Senate and to the National Assembly, it is very clear in the KPMG audit. And that is why we have taken steps. We've realized that this is the hand we've been dealt with, and how do we deal with it? And that is why we have put in place the KIMS technology to ensure that before you vote, again, it's not the BVR. The BVR is what was used for registration of voters. It is a KIMS gadget that we're using for purposes of voting. You will have to put in your fingerprints. You will have to put your fingerprints identified with your fingerprints before you're given a ballot to vote. The era of the ballot stuffing is gone. That era is a bygone era.
Before I bring in Bonakimoso, Commissioner Kwamboka, the question that may arise is that yes, there are 41,000 polling stations, each with its own KIMS verification gadget. What if one of them fails? What if 2 or even 1,000 of those gadgets fail in different polling stations? Are you saying the possibility that some of these, because now you're saying there's no, you cannot possibly have a watertight voters roll? You don't think that yes, if the numbers that are just there hanging in the air, those ones could be used in case the KIMS system fails?
Just to clarify, we have 40,883 polling stations. There will be one gadget in each of those 40,883 polling stations. We are going to have also additional kits. Remember, we acquired 45,000 kits for purposes of ensuring that we have backup in case a gadget fails in one place or another. We will be making available air assets for us to be able to deploy those gadgets on a very quick notice if one fails to work. We have been testing that technology. We tested it and we had stakeholders participate in the testing of the technology. We are going to be doing one more testing before the election. Look, we've had these gadgets used for an entire month during the verification, the biometric verification of voters. We saw that the failure rate of this technology is very minimal.
Are you guaranteeing us that there will be no failure, Commissioner Kwamboka?
Look, that is the thing that we're working on a daily basis to ensure that we have no failure of technology. Because remember that unlike 2013, when the use of technology was optional, in 2017, the use of technology is mandatory. It is in the law. It is the backbone of the election. And that is where we're spending night and day on working on that technology to ensure that that technology works. We have 3 backup systems of ensuring that if one of the servers fails, you have a second one and you have a third one. So that is a guarantee that we want to give to the Kenyans, that we are going to make available that technology to be used in a way that it can deal with any issues of deceased voters. There will be deceased voters in the register because unfortunately there will be people who will perish on election day. There will be people who will perish on the day before election. What we need to do is to ensure that we put processes in place to ensure that those sorts of people and not politicians do not manipulate those systems to allow people who are not allowed to vote to come and cast their ballot.
Bwana Kimosopa, are you convinced by that explanation by Commissioner Kwamboka? Because ODM does not buy that.
Thanks, Fred, for having me, and always a pleasure to be here. I think I will speak to 3 issues. Number 1 is in an electoral process, you require predictable processes for unpredictable outcomes. In the sense that everybody can go into the election knowing very well that their chances of winning and losing are the probability applies across the board. Number 2 is that when we look at the elections that we have, IEBC is a constitutional body. I think at the moment my concern is that the IEBC is not projecting the confidence as a constitutional body. It is actually coming out more as a parliamentary, a creature that is created by an act of parliament. I don't know. I think what they need to appreciate is that the current debate is not in the technical process. And if you listen to our colleague here, she's explained to us the technical issues. In my own view, I am convinced as an individual, like technically the IEBC is ready for an election. Now the problem is that IEBC is not only a constitutional body, it is also a political institution. Currently, they are not managing the politics very well. Let me just explain why they are not managing the politics very well. Remember, politicians will do anything. For example, when you even know that you might not win the election, you have to prepare your constituents for such a situation. So you have to spin the situation. So currently, if you remember the 2013 presidential petition, at the heart of the petition was the register. In my view, I would recommend clearly that the IEBC takes the political narrative and instead of reacting, it needs to be ahead. How do I point out? The current situation is that the IEBC has been failed by other government departments. Now that needs to come out clearly, and they need to put blame squarely where it belongs. And by them, if you look at the political formation, they are pushing the failure of other government departments into the IEBC. I think the political narrative is, excuse me, this was a responsibility of another organization. But for us, even if they fail, we will not fail as the IEBC, and then be ahead of the narrative. Look, currently there is a political spin in the public square that there will even be secret polling stations. I think you should not allow such things to go. So my recommendation to Commissioner Kwamboka and the team is that they need to up the game, particularly not on the technical explanations, which they are doing very well, but in taking lead and command on shaping the political narrative.
Bwana Kimosop, if I may get you right, you're saying that IEBC actually has no problem. They are doing their job right. It's only the communication and convincing the political players that they're actually doing their job.
Not only communication. Remember, I think my concern with the IEBC is that they are communicating mainly as a corporate institution. You know, the way the KPMGs, these other institutions that are communicating corporately, but they are not political. There is something called political communication, and now that is a responsibility of the chairman of the IEBC. For me, my reading of the chairman of the IEBC in his engagement, it comes out though he is still the advocate representing clients, he is managing a political process. We need to see him when politicians are saying things that are not correct. He needs to put them in their square, and that requires him to step up the game. I know it is good for us to say this, because I can tell you, as an individual, technically, I'm convinced that IEBC is ready, but politically, they need to up their game. Yes,
Commissioner Kwamboka, could you kindly respond to that before we take some piece of news?
No, thank you. I mean, I think Vincent has raised some very important issues, and I think that is what we've been focusing as a commission. We've been focusing a lot on the technical preparations, because you have to be technically ready for you to be convinced that you can be able to speak out and communicate and explain to people. I think the point he has raised on the political engagement is important, and that is what we have seen Chairman Chebukati spend a lot of time doing. He has been reaching out to the various political actors, and as we move forward in the next few days, you will see us focusing more on that. We had last month a huge national conference on election that brought together all the various political actors to try and put the country together as we move towards the election. And you will see the chairman and the commissioners raising to that occasion and taking that political space that we need to take as we get closer to election day.
Okay. Allow me to. Can I say
yes,
something?
Yes, please.
Just in brief, I think, Kwamboka, what I mean is that, you know, politics is competition for resources. It is influencing constituencies to certain persuasion. I think the reality of it is that Kenyans, I will tell you, understand that we are not in a first world where all our systems are integrated, government departments, information speaking to each other. We appreciate that. I think if you consistently point out where the problem is, who should be doing it, what you're doing about it, and when we have spin from the political side, come out clearly, hey, that is politics, for us this is our focus. I'll tell you, Kenyans are able to distill between what IEBC is saying, because what we don't want is a situation whereby IEBC seems to be identified to the one or the other part of the formation, but coming out clearly as the referee.
And that accusation is there, and we'll be discussing it in a while, because yes, IEBC has actually been accused of siding or appearing to side with one of the political competitors. In a short while, we'll also be looking at this issue of the SMS verification platform by IEBC. There are claims, social media is awash with claims. We just need a verification that some random numbers are actually generating results from that SMS verification platform. We'll be seeking an answer from Commissioner Kwamboka on that as well. Let's now take an update on the nurses' strike. Our reporter John Wanyama from Eldoret is on standby. Very good afternoon to you, John. What is happening in Eldoret with regard to the strike this morning?
Thank you very much, Indimoli. Good morning. And here in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu town, is that the situation is still dire here, and the people are still suffering. No even a single nurse that has gone to work so far, apart from the 200 that were alleged they betrayed their fellow nurses. And those are believed to be working up to now. But I'm rightly at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, as you can see, and we want to talk to one of nurses officials to tell us what is the situation now. Last week they were tear gassed. Now what is happening today? After I was informed that they are planning a mega demonstration today. We want to know where are they going to assemble, where are they going to demonstrate now that tear gas are here with them. Maybe, sir, if you can come closer to me, tell us, how is the situation in hospital now that you started this strike? Today is 1 month, 3 days.
Thank you, members of media. My name is Mr. Charles Al-Soreng, Assistant Chief Trustee in the Kenya National Union of Nurses. Guys, as you know, or as you are aware, our strike is entering 1 month, 3 days now for nurses in Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and 28th day for our colleagues from the counties. At the moment, guys, in Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, there is no work going on at all. In fact, from our own sources, they are saying the patient number has gone down drastically. In fact, some wards have 4 patients, 3 patients, so there is nothing going on there. And as nurses, we are saying we are staying put until we get what we wanted, until our CPA is registered in the courts, employment and labor courts. As you are aware, guys, Sarah Serem released a report on last week Friday for chief executive officers for all parastatals in Kenya. And in fact, from that report, it underplaced all CEOs. So we are saying, what will happen to us now? It's like it will be more worse. And we are telling Sarah Serem, please, that report, we don't want to see it again. In fact, I think we are going to challenge as union in court now for Sarah Serem to do a shoddy job for the last 2 years, and it has come with a very awkward grading. They call Patterson, I don't know where they got it, but we are saying as nurses of MTRH, we want our CPA to be registered, and we don't want those grading of Sarah Serem again, those of SRC.
Are you having a demonstration today, and where? Now that last week police were forced to disperse from this hospital.
Guys, we are not afraid of tear gas. We are not afraid of police. In fact, from last week incident where they tear gas nurses, it became more strong now for nurses to demonstrate. And in fact, today we are going to demonstrate along Eldoret Nairobi Road, town, and back here. And maybe on Wednesday, we are going to be joined by our colleague from Nandi County, Elgeyo Marakwet, and maybe Trans-Nzoia, and we shall do a major grand demonstration here on Wednesday.
Thank you. In Ndimuli, those are his views. As you can hear, the situation here in Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital is very dire, and things are growing worse each and every day. Kenyans are hoping that the government will chip in very fast to ensure that this situation comes to an end so that they can get these vital services from the hospital. From my side in Ndimuli here in Uasin Gishu County, I have no much. Back to your studio.
Thank you, John Wanyama, all the way from Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, giving us an update on the nurses' strike, which is now on 1 month, 3 days later. The nurses' strike continues. We're just about to get another update on the same from Kisumu. Our reporter Laura Otieno is on standby. A very good morning to you, Laura. How is the nurses' strike? How is the situation in hospitals in Kisumu this morning?
Very good morning to you, Fred and Ndimuli. And here in Kisumu, the situation is pretty much the same as the one in Eldoret, only that the nurses, we were speaking to the officials earlier on this morning, they say that they're not on the streets, they're not in the hospitals. They still insist that until their CBA is signed, they will be refraining duty. And in government hospitals and government health centers, no services are being offered whatsoever. Mothers are being shunned away. The situation is still the same as it was weeks earlier. Children are being given immunization. Wards have actually been closed where we don't have any stick actually in the wards, because doctors say that their services, their doctoring services are complementary with the nursing services. So unless the nurses come back to work, then it's actually impossible for them to be administering any sort of service. And also, Fred, if I could also tell you about the political heat here in county number 042. The drumbeats are already sounding with ODM top aspirants here in this county are releasing their manifestos. On Thursday, we had ODM senatorial aspirant Fred Outa launching his manifesto at Ahero, and on Friday we also had the gubernatorial aspirant for ODM, Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, unveiling his manifesto. And looking at some of the key points they were raising, they're actually in line with NASA's manifesto, which focuses on social and economic development. Most of the things they talked about in the manifestos, the two aspirants, it included revamping the agricultural sector here in Kisumu County, with reference especially to farmers, rice farmers in Ahero. Of course, we will be following up, of course, on matters health and matters politics here, and bring you the latest. Back to you, Fred.
Thank you, Laura. Good job, Laura, all the way in Kisumu, with an update on the NASA strike as well as a political going zone in that county, county number 42. Of course, we'll be expecting much more from Kisumu in our subsequent bulletins. Back in studio, we still do have IEBC Commissioner Akombe Kwamboka and our analysts Vincent Kimosop and Mark Bichachi. Now let's move on to this other claim that yes, that there are invalid ID numbers that are still generating results from the SMS verification platform by the IEBC, and this is also one of those things that ODM has raised. The Secretary General Agnes Zani saying that the released figures of voters across the country neither represent a true picture of the voting population. Now that's a different claim. She's actually listed different numbers where random numbers i.e. 066, 243, which are not in any way ID numbers, are still returning entries of valid voters. Is this claim true? Is there any truth to these claims? Commissioner Kwamboka, before we come to the analysts.
Thank you very much, Fred. You know, the registrar, as we've said on many occasions, is the fulcrum of this election, because it's, you know, it's a central part of a register. And we really urge Kenyans, before they take up anything that they're hearing from the politicians, to verify these things on for themselves, because politicians will always find a way of delegitimizing the register. It is what we have seen all over in various parts of the world where I have worked. It's the first place that politicians will hit at. And that is what we have seen on Twitter this weekend long, these last few days, where the legitimacy of the register is being questioned. But having said that, during the KPMG audit launch, when they were giving us a report, you might recall that they identified some errors that are there in the register. And some of those errors were identified as clerical errors, about 171,000 cases in which you have errors in the numbers of the identification numbers, where maybe somebody will put a serial number, the clerks, when they were entering the information, will put a serial number instead of the ID number. But when you check the biometrics of the voters, you find that the biometrics are correct, the names are correct. We had discussions with all the 8 presidential candidates and presented to them that scenario and said we have 171,000 cases in which the ID numbers might not be correct, but the biometrics we have verified and re-verified, they are correct. The names of these people are correct. We have checked with our returning officers, and these are Kenyans who have a right to vote like anybody else. How do we proceed? The guidance we got from the political parties, all the 8 presidential candidates represented there or being there in person, was that we should maintain those 171,000 people in the register. And that is what you're probably seeing in cases in which those are probably the errors that you're finding people when they put in the names. It's an incomplete identification. But those are registered Kenyans. Those are Kenyans whose biometrics we have. Should we take them out of the register? That is the decision that we had put forward to the political actors, and they agreed. And they said the 171,000 Kenyans cannot be disenfranchised because of clerical errors that were made during the entry of their numbers.
Are you saying you're going to disregard the ID, the national ID, because it is one of the vital documents that you have to provide when you go to vote, even before you get your biometrics checked? Now, if at all a number like 066, they actually generate my voter details, what happens to my ID?
And that is why, Fred, we have emphasized again that biometric verification is the primary method for voting. You will have to put your biometrics to be identified by your biometrics. We have a breakdown of those 171,000 cases. We've met those 171,000 cases available to the political actors. They know, they're aware that we have 171,000 cases of people whose ID numbers in the system might not be complete, or instead of the clerks entering the national ID number, they had put the serial numbers. Those are known. But that is where we're saying the important aspect of our electoral process right now is biometric verification. And if your biometrics are correct, and they are correct as per the KPMG audit, it said the quality of the biometrics in the register was very good. If you are going by the biometrics,
171,000 clerical errors on a register that even one voter can determine an election. Don't you think that's worrying?
No, but again, what I'm saying is that we are using biometrics to identify as voters. We presented those numbers.
What you're saying, Commissioner,
those numbers were presented to the actors.
The basis of registering as a voter in this nation is, first of all, you must be a Kenyan. Being a Kenyan means you have a valid identity card or a passport to be able to register. If the identity card does not exist or the number there is not correct, biometrically identifying me does not make me a Kenyan.
It makes you a Kenyan because we have your biometrics. I've emphasized again. We're using your biometrics. It is not a case.
I'm sorry.
Look, this is a case in which
the basis in law of registering as a voter is not that I have fingerprints.
Absolutely.
The question is, Commissioner Kwamboka, are we subordinating the role of the ID card in the elections? Because if we say that this 171,000 clerical errors, that yes, simply you can show up without your ID as long as your biometrics are right, we do not need your ID. Don't you think that will affect something? Bonakimo Sope, even before we come back to Commissioner?
And as I said that, I think I will repeat, not to be sound to be repeating. There's something that Commissioner said, that they engaged the 8 presidential candidates concerning the 100 and they had a variety those that don't have biometrics, and there was agreement in or consensus that you should have them. I think again I will reiterate that IEBC needs to come out clearly, not to be seen to be led, but to be leading in the process. Because I can tell you what happens if politicians agree and thereafter then it becomes an issue or a bone of contention. Or if they agree, they should also come out publicly to say that this is what we have agreed with IEBC, so that they are not removing the post and at the end of the day they leave IEBC in bad place. Repeating the same thing I pointed out, the problem really in my view, Fed, is not really the technical processes on getting ready for elections. It is the management of the politics. If the 8 presidential candidates have agreed, did they commit, for example, on in writing, so that it becomes something that holds them into account?
Because any of them could actually go to court on the basis of this and say, yes, the voters' roll was not authentic. There were 171,000 errors that the IEBC actually admitted to and did nothing about. And
but we heard from the commission saying that they engaged the political actors and they agreed that let us not disenfranchise those who have challenges with their biometrics and have that is what I've.
But the question is, yes, Vincent and everyone else in studio, the question is, the basis of voting in any particular election is you have to be a citizen of that country.
Yes.
In this country, that verification is via ID card. It's not by the existence of biometric details. You understand? And the truth of the matter is, if we look at it constitutionally, then those 171,000 people are likely voting outside of the constitution. And the third part is this, that those political players, the 8 of them, are not a legislative body. So on what basis do they come to a decision?
Mark, let me repeat again. We have addressed the Kenyans in various fora, on this Citizen TV, on our returning officers reaching out to the Kenyans within the electoral authority areas. We've explained these issues since the audit report came out. We've explained that we have 171,000 people who were registered, who went in good faith, showed their national ID card, which was the basis of registration and which is the basic element that you require. It's either your national identification or your national passport. They provided those documents. Their information was entered. Their biometrics were entered correctly. Their voting area was entered correctly. Their names were entered correctly. But you have a situation in which you have an error in maybe 1 digit left out in their national ID. Should you leave that Kenyan out of voting? Absolutely not. That is not correct. And that is why you will still have to show
the role of the ID card in terms of identifying the voter
in
election.
You will still need to show your national ID card. You will still need to come with your national ID card. They will enter. There are different ways that they can search you in the system to make sure that that national ID number that you have, the national ID card that you have presented to them, so even if it is not correct, you will still need to have the ID. They can search you through in the system. They can search alphanumeric. They will put the alphanumeric. They will swipe the card, and once they swipe the card, your information will be able to be seen, and after that then you'll be given the ballot paper. We've not at any point of this discussion said that the national ID card is not a basic element. You will need to have your national ID card there. But the fact that a clerk made an error and left out a digit out of your ID card should not be a basis for you to be disenfranchised as a voter. And these are cases around the country.
Is opening itself up for litigation in this particular matter. 171,000 errors that you admit to. Anyone who feels it didn't go their way can actually go to court on the strength of this.
And that's exactly what the problem is. You see, 171,000 people in an election of 50 plus one vote. You understand? And the basis of identification is the number that I have must fully tally with the number on the register. So you cannot say that there are two, three numbers missing on the ID card and they tally on the register.
Mark,
unless I'm reading you wrong.
Mark, I think we need to understand the process of registration of Kenyans. I think we need to spend some time explaining to you. You will have your name, your number, and your biometrics in the system. So the 171,000 are included in the 19,601,000 that we have talked about. It is not 171,000 people that are outside that framework. They are within the 19 million voters that we have been talking about. I mean, I think we should also be clear that unlike 2013, we have one register. We're talking about one register, not a register that has the 171 whose errors are, whose names are not correct in a different book or another green book or a black book. We have only one register that includes all those issues that I've talked about. You talk about litigation. We're trying to be transparent. We want to give all the information that is out there. Should we have hidden these 171,000 so that we can avoid litigation? No. We believe in transparency. If there are issues, we brought them onto the table. We presented it to the Kenyan people. We presented it to the political actors so that everybody knows that we're going into this election with 171,000 people whose IDs might not have been correctly put into the system. That is what transparency is about. It's the Kenyans to decide. If they come today and say remove the 171,000 out of the system, then and I need to emphasize it.
Yes.
The 171,000 Kenyans are not from one so-called political stronghold. They are spread across the country. They are not in one location or another.
How can
we can provide that information. We absolutely know. We do our job well, and that is why we have looked at the biometrics. I just want to explain that the point you are making is that the 171,000, what we have looked at them, we have broken them down, and we've realized that they're spread all over the country. So when you're talking about it making a difference of 50 plus 1, it's really not an issue here because we're talking about the spread
before we
all
go to a break, is the possibility of this particular number being misused anywhere in this process?
Fred, I'm into strategy. If I was working for any of the political formation, I have very good fodder from IEBC to spin this thing during this process. But I think why we are speaking like this to Commissioner Komboka is we desire to see a free, fair and credible election. As in we want to see IEBC succeed, and IEBC will succeed when we roll it into account and give it the advice that it deserves. But I think at the moment, I feel that from the communication, the posturing, the political class, and we know very well they are into a competition, and they will throw in everything, including the kitchen sink, into this process. And I can say one of the strategies, if you look at the political formations, is to make sure that IEBC does not come out as a body that's credible and that it conducted an election. Let me just look at this. If you listen consistently, I have followed the IEBC commissioners. One of the things they've been telling us consistently is that the technology that they're deploying is not going to fail. And I can tell you, as in, we live in a world where at times technology fails. What happens if, for example, come the 8th and God forbid, we are praying for you, the technology fails? Will it mean that we will not have an election? Will it mean that there will be issues of credibility? I think there is also need for a balance in the narrative, so that at the end of the day, irrespective of what transpires, the election is not only seen but also perceived to be free and fair.
Bwana Kimosop is convinced that it's a matter of IEBC influencing confidence in itself.
Actually, you've gotten the point. For me, Fred, if I was consulting for IEBC, as in the word they need to hit currently, and it's hard, is project confidence. And I'll give you a very good example of other constitutional bodies that have done the same. I am comparing IEBC with the Commission on Implementation of the Constitution that was chaired by Charles Nyachai. At some point, Charles Nyachai would tell the Attorney General off and telling that we are all, with this body, is only going to be faithful to the Kenyan people and the Constitution. I feel at times that the commissioners, and this is a challenge that we give you, Komboka, is that you are coming out as though you are really reporting to the political class rather than, and you know very well, the political class, they do not conduct an election. They contest in the elections. And IEBC needs to take its rightful place. You are a referee. We've seen referees really manage wonderful matches. Even
I do not envy Commissioner Akombe Kwamboka's position this morning. You are on the hot seat, and you'll continue there for a while. There are other claims that we need to look at, especially with regard to the IEBC. Claims that the IEBC Director for ICT1, James Mohati, who had been sent on compulsory leave, that allegedly he has been reinstated. I do not know, yet he had been sent on compulsory leave for refusing to cooperate with an ongoing audit of ICT systems. That, plus other claims that the ODM has made with regard to IEBC and the voters register, but that's when Citizen Extra returns.